Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're pulling back the curtain on a really fascinating collection of ancient sources.
Yeah, we're diving into quite a mix: hidden philosophy, symbolism, mythology, even alchemy, and, whispers of secret societies.
Think of this as peeling back layers, maybe. We're looking for the core insights, the kind of wisdom hidden beneath all that symbolism and, well, allegory.
Exactly. Our mission, if you like, is to unpack the key concepts from this material and see what connections, maybe surprising ones, emerge across these different traditions.
Right. So get ready, because we're going to look at some pretty familiar ideas, maybe, but from a potentially surprising new angle.
Okay, so where do we start?
Well, let's jump right in with this pretty big idea from the sources.
Yeah.
That philosophy, the deep thinking kind, didn't actually begin as some abstract academic thing.
No, not in lecture halls. The argument here is it came directly out of the religious mysteries of antiquity.
Mysteries like the Eleusinian ones in Greece or the Druids, those kinds of groups.
Precisely. They were seen as guardians, almost, of this transcendental knowledge. Stuff considered maybe too profound or even potent to just reveal openly.
So only for initiates, people who'd been, purified somehow, shown they were selfless?
Yeah, something like that. And crucially, the sources emphasize these mysteries weren't really about worshiping, say, anthropomorphic gods or strict theology in the way we might think.
More moralistic then. Or philosophical.
Exactly. More focused on helping people understand nature and its laws. Teaching intelligent use of your own faculties, patience, courage, truth.
And seeing a worthy life, living well as the highest form of sacrifice, that's quite different.
It really is. Take the Druids, for instance. The sources suggest they had like 2 tiers of teaching.
Okay.
Simple moral codes for the general populace, yeah. But then a much deeper, more esoteric doctrine reserved just for initiates.
And getting into that inner circle wasn't easy, I take it.
No, definitely not. Required, apparently, good family background, high moral character. Candidates were tested in all sorts of ways.
And what were they teaching in there?
Some pretty big concepts. Immortality of the soul, for one. Transmigration. The soul moving between bodies. Reincarnation.
Wow. So ideas about past lives, paying back debts, maybe?
Some believed exactly that. Or that you might need to come back multiple times to learn lessons, overcome inherent flaws, that kind of thing.
And the rituals must have been packed with symbolism, too.
Oh, absolutely. The sources mention specific Druidic items, like the Iodhan Moran, a breastplate of judgment, supposedly.
Right.
A tiara representing a rising sun, a magic brooch used as a burning glass, the golden sickle for harvesting sacred plants, a crescent-shaped scepter.
All objects carrying meaning.
Definitely. And there's this image of a glass boat, the Crow Gwydion, used for admission to midnight ceremonies.
A glass boat. What did that symbolize?
Well, it was seen as representing the moon, preserving the seeds of life floating on the waters of eternity. Really poetic imagery.
And the Eleusinian Mysteries in Greece, they used symbolism, too.
Very much so. Think about passing through 2 symbolic gates. One represented birth, entering the lower worlds, the material realm,
And the other.
leading upwards towards light and truth, often symbolized by cave entrances. And their main temple, it could supposedly hold tens of thousands.
That's huge. Suggests a major operation for passing on this knowledge.
And the specific symbols they used, really fascinating. Transparent things like crystal or ivory were called divine light.
Gold for purity, I assume.
Yes. A black stone represented divine invisibility, the part you can't grasp. The human form itself was seen as the source of beauty, embodying the deity.
Luminous objects for gods.
Spheres for the universe, sun, moon, fortune, circles for eternity, celestial movements, even sections of circles for moon phases.
Pyramids, obelisks, they all meant something specific.
Pointing to the igneous principle, heavenly gods, the sun, cones for the sun, cylinders for the earth, and yeah, even the phallus or a triangle for generation, for creation itself.
So it's like these mysteries were using a whole symbolic language, communicated through experience and objects, not just words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A language designed to teach profound truths about the cosmos and, crucially, about human potential.
Which leads us neatly into the philosophers mentioned in these sources, doesn't it? They seem to carry that torch, that focus on, on us.
Yes, the idea that the real subject of philosophy is man. Look at Pythagoras. He founded the Italic school.
Famous for math, right? But it was more than just numbers for him.
Oh, much more. He saw mathematics as the most sacred science. Studying arithmetic, music, astronomy, geometry. These were essential steps towards living a truly philosophic life.
He even set up a community. for mutual support.
Yeah, a community focused on shared learning and assistance. And he introduced retrospection, that practice of reviewing your day as a key discipline.
And his system linked numbers to, what, cosmic forces?
Causal agencies, yeah. He's credited with the theory of celestial harmonics, the music of the spheres. Believed the planets made a kind of cosmic music.
And he emphasized silence before contemplation, preparing the mind.
Right, preparation. His followers picked up these threads, Empedocles, for example.
The one who accepted transmigration.
Yes, he wrote that line. A boy I was, then did a maid become. A plant, bird, fish, and in the vast sea swum. It captures the idea beautifully.
And Archytas, another Pythagorean.
Credited with inventing the screw and the crane, interestingly. But philosophically, he saw pleasure as a pestilence, a distraction. Thought a man without deceit was incredibly rare.
Then there's Socrates. The sources call him a skeptic.
Yeah, but not in the modern sense of just doubting everything. More that he used questioning, the Socratic method, to help others discover their own philosophy, rather than just telling them what to think.
He saw the whole world as a school for virtue.
That's the idea. And his core belief, according to these texts, was that the soul existed before the body.
Already possessing knowledge.
Yes, endowed with knowledge. But when it enters the body, it becomes stupefied, kind of dimmed.
So philosophy's role is to wake it up again.
Exactly. Through discourse, through engaging with sensible objects, the soul could reawaken that inherent wisdom. For him, philosophy's sole subject was man.
And its purpose was twofold.
Contemplate God and abstract the soul from being totally dominated by physical sensations. Find true happiness that way.
The sources jump forward a bit then. Spinoza.
Right, the Dutch philosopher.
Yeah.
His view, God is this absolutely self-existent substance. We can only understand God through attributes like extension space and thought.
Schopenhauer. He
Yeah.
sounds intense.
He focused heavily on the will. For him, the true subject of philosophy was the will, and its object was to elevate the mind so it could control the will.
He had that image, right? The blind man and the lame man.
Yeah, the will is the strong blind man carrying the intellect, which is like a weak, lame man who can actually see. The will is the driving force behind everything.
Our brain is the will to know, our hand the will to grasp.
Exactly, and often the mind just comes up with justifications for what the will already wants. Genius, for Schopenhauer, was when the intellect gains supremacy over the will, when life is ruled by reason.
He saw strength in Christianity's pessimism, its focus on conquering the individual will.
He did. He saw parallels with Buddhism, too, with nirvana being about subjugating the will. He had a somewhat dim view of life itself, suggesting maybe the true philosopher resists the urge to reproduce.
Quite a range of thinkers, but there's that thread, isn't there? Coming back to understanding ourselves, our consciousness, and our place in a layered reality.
A thread that seems to originate right back in those ancient mysteries.
Okay, so building on that idea of layers, let's talk about symbolic cosmologies. These ancient maps of the universe weren't always literal, were they?
Not at all. The Ptolemaic system, for example, the Earth-centered model, these sources argue it wasn't primarily about astronomy as we'd study it now.
What was it then?
More like a diagram showing the relationships between the divine parts, the elemental parts of every creature, including us.
So the orbits, the planets, they weren't just rocks floating out there.
They were seen as governors of the world. And the elemental spheres at the center represented the physical and sort of energetic constitution of both the universe and man. It was like a cross-section of the universal aura.
Wow. Okay. So no real relation to modern astronomy's view of planets and elements.
Not in that direct physical sense, no. It was a symbolic map of forces and principles.
And the Mensa Isiaca, that table of Isis, that sounds incredibly complex.
It is. Apparently, experts like Montfaucon really struggled to decode its intricate symbolism, but these sources link it firmly to Egyptian Gnosticism.
And see it as, what, another diagram?
Yeah, a diagrammatic layout of Platonic philosophy, essentially epitomizing mystic ideas about cosmogony, creation, and generation.
Can you break down its structure a bit?
Well, it's described with different panels. An upper one with 12 zodiac figures grouped in triads linked to cosmic powers and lords.
Like the cherubim from Ezekiel.
Exactly. Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio are mentioned as being central figures there. The central panel has triads representing man's three invisible parts.
And the sides.
The side panels are man's lower nature, the quaternary, the four elements, maybe. And the 21 figures in the center are linked to the sun, connected through Kabbalistic numerology.
And a lower panel for the underworld.
Right, with two gates, east and west, where the sun wanders symbolically. It's a complete symbolic system laid out visually.
We see this linking of elements elsewhere too, right? Flood's diagram.
Yes, Robert Flood used these interpenetrating pyramids to show relationships between fire, earth, water, and air. He even demonstrated harmonic ratios between them, like musical intervals.
Suggesting the elements themselves exist in a kind of harmony.
Precisely. That fire and earth, for example, are in a specific harmonic relationship, like notes in music.
And even something seemingly straightforward like the tabernacle in the Old Testament, loaded with symbolism.
Completely. Its dimensions, its furniture, the high priest's vestments, everything carried meaning, according to this view.
The linen robe signified earth, the blue robe, the sky.
The ephod showed the universe constructed from 4 elements. Gold meant splendor. The breastplate was like the earth in the center.
The girdle, the ocean, the 2 sardonyx stones were sun and moon.
Right. And the 12 stones on the breastplate, either the months or the zodiac signs. The mitre, the hat, meant heaven, inscribed with God's name. The crown, God's splendor.
So the whole structure was a microcosm, a symbolic model of the universe.
Exactly. Built with specific timing, dedicated at the new moon, reinforcing those cosmic cycles. It shows how deeply embedded this symbolic way of thinking was.
And this encoding of meaning, it wasn't just in diagrams or buildings. Mythology seems key here.
Oh, absolutely central. These sources argue myths were often the primary vehicle for carrying secret doctrines, especially to a wider audience.
Take Orpheus, the musician.
He represents the secret doctrine itself, revealed through harmony, through music, his lost love, Eurydice.
He represents humanity, lost in ignorance.
Yes, dead from the serpent bite of false knowledge, perhaps, and the Siconian women who tear him apart.
Warring factions, arguing over beliefs.
Contending theological factions, destroying the truth in their squabbles, but his head still singing after death.
The esoteric doctrines live on, even if the outward form, the cult, dies.
Precisely. And his lyre, the instrument, is the secret teaching itself. 7 strings, 7 divine truths.
And the different stories about how he died.
They symbolize the various ways secret teachings get lost or destroyed over time. His final incarnation as a white swan signifies the spiritual truths being taught anew by illumined initiates.
The Bacchic or Dionysiac rites have a similar allegorical layer.
Very much so. Bacchus, or Dionysus, is torn to pieces by the Titans. Why? Because they're fascinated by his reflection in a mirror.
The mirror representing illusion, the material world.
Perhaps. Fixation on the illusion leads to the fragmentation of the divine life. Maybe. But here's the key part connecting it to us.
Go on.
The human race is supposedly created from the ashes of those Titans. Ashes which contained a portion of Bacchus himself.
Meaning?
Meaning that within every human being, within our mundane, everyday existence, there's a spark, a fragment of that divine Bacchic life.
That resonates with the Osiris story too, doesn't it? The Egyptian king recognized by the Greeks as Dionysus.
Absolutely. The civilizing king, betrayed by his brother Typhon and conspirators, dismembered.
But found and resurrected by Isis. It's that cycle again.
The death and rebirth of the god, the knowledge, the divine spark within. Typhon is eventually defeated. And the idea of gods becoming stars, Isis is the dog star, Typhon the bear, connects the myth to the cosmos.
Even Isis's headdress is interpreted symbolically.
As representing her murdered husband's throne. Yeah, it's layers upon layers of meaning.
And this pattern extends to figures like Chiram or Hiram Abiff from other traditions.
Yes, he's presented here as a kind of martyred sun figure in a cosmic allegory. The fiery architect, the master builder.
Not just a historical figure, but a symbol.
A symbol of the sun's journey, perhaps? Discovered by Aries, raised by the line of Judah? These are astrological ages. The precession of the equinoxes means different zodiac signs symbolically murder him in different eras.
So it's an eternally recurring cosmic drama.
Representing an annual tragedy and resurrection, he is the universal benefactor, and his story, the search for the lost word associated with him,
embodies the fate of philosophy itself.
That's the interpretation. The pagan mysteries, the builders of civilization, Chiram as master builder, constantly falling victim to the state, the church, the ignorant mob.
So raising Chiram is symbolic of rediscovering that lost secret teaching, finishing the incomplete temple of civilization.
Exactly. It's about restoring that foundational wisdom.
The Grail legend gets folded into this too. Some see it as a continuation of ancient wisdom.
Yes, perhaps Christian mystics preserving older truths through cup rituals. A quest for truth, much like the search for the lost word.
Or maybe a pagan nature myth grafted onto Christianity, the Grail as a vessel of life force.
That's another interpretation offered. The Grail as the ark containing the life of the world, the body of Mother Nature. Its green color linked to Venus reinforces that.
Even Merlin from Arthurian legend
His story, especially the part about his infernal father, maybe a dragon or serpent figure,
is read allegorically.
as him being a philosophical son of the serpent or dragon symbols, not of evil here, but of wisdom, the immortal father principle. Nature is the mortal mother.
Contrasting with the later demonization of the serpent in Genesis.
Right. The sources suggest this was a misinterpretation, and groups like the medieval Rosicrucians understood the original positive symbolism of the serpent dragon as wisdom.
And Revelation, the woman clothed with the sun.
Interpreted as drawing directly on older myths, specifically the constellation Virgo and the Egyptian Isis being attacked by Typhon, the dragon, while about to give birth to Horus, the savior child.
And the New Jerusalem isn't just a literal future city.
No, it's the archetype of a perfect civilization. Its gates, its foundations, all represent elements of spiritual doctrine. The builders are the illumined souls working to manifest that ideal on earth.
So myths become these incredibly rich containers for complex philosophical and spiritual ideas.
Precisely. And that hidden stream of knowledge, they argue, flows directly into traditions like alchemy and the Hermetic sciences.
Right, which weren't just about turning lead into gold, were they?
Not the true alchemy, no. It was deeply tied to philosophy, mysticism, traced back to Hermes Trismegistus, identified with both Greek Hermes and Egyptian Thoth.
Thoth, the god of wisdom, letters, time, that's where Hermetic comes from. Hermetically sealed.
Exactly. From the tradition of keeping this knowledge secret, or perhaps pure, a key text is the Poimandres.
Where Hermes receives a vision.
Yes, while meditating. He encounters Poimandres described as the mind of the universe, creative intelligence, the absolute emperor, sometimes identified with Osiris.
And this vision reveals
The nature of the universe, the gods, creation itself. It describes light and darkness swirling, a holy word or reason emerging, dividing waters, creating worlds above and below.
And the core teaching from that, what's the takeaway for us?
It's about ignorance versus understanding. Ignorance binds you to the physical body, making you fear death because the body dies.
But understanding.
Understanding your true nature, that you are life and light, allows you to transcend that fear and pass into eternal life and light.
Okay, so that's the philosophical goal. How does alchemy fit in?
Alchemy is the practice of achieving that transformation. The true philosopher alchemist starts with prayer, acknowledging a supreme alchemist. The goal is the magnum opus,
The great work, which is
the transmutation of one's own mortal nature into an immortal spiritual body. It's described using chemical metaphors, melting, purifying in fire, being drawn out by spirit.
achieving a body of rainbow colors. Sounds mystical,
It is, and the philosopher's stone is the result of this inner great work.
not just a physical stone.
While it was said to tinge base metals or perfect gems, its deeper meaning is the perfected spiritual self, made from sun and moon of equal parts, perhaps the balanced inner masculine and feminine.
Able to penetrate and transform.
Exactly. Put in a vessel, the self, with its
Mhm.
water spirit, closed with fire, purification. It's all symbolic language for inner transformation.
And some alchemists saw the Bible this way too, as an alchemical text in disguise.
Yes, believing it contained hidden chemical or alchemical formulas within its stories and allegories. Literal interpretation, they felt, led you away from the inner truth.
They deliberately hid secrets in fables, pointing towards one thing.
The one great aim, the magnum opus, spiritual perfection. Elias Ashmole is mentioned as one who did this.
So alchemy was fundamentally a spiritual path using chemical symbolism.
That's the core argument presented here.
And this idea of encoding wisdom, it wasn't just in myths or processes, it extended right down to numbers, letters, even everyday objects.
Absolutely. Numbers were huge, especially for Pythagoreans. The most sacred symbol? The tetractys. 10 dots in a triangle.
They swore oaths by it. Why was it so important?
It symbolized universal nature, contained the essential numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, adding up to 10. It could form the cube and the star visually. It held deep cosmic meaning.
7 dots used for the cube star, linked to creation periods, the central dot, the Sabbath.
Right? And the 3 unused corner dots hinting at the invisible causal nature behind reality.
And the decade, the number 10 itself.
The greatest number, because it contained the tetractys, all arithmetic and harmonic proportions. Pythagoras noted all nations count to 10, then return to the monad, 1.
It represented perfection, heaven, the world.
All of that, associated with age, power, faith, necessity, memory, contained opposites like Adivan, good ill, linked to deities like Atlas, Urania, the sun, one god.
Whereas 9 was seen as evil.
Sometimes, yeah, as an inverted 6. Also linked to the number of spheres consciousness passed through to birth, and its shape resembling a spermatozoon connected it to germinal life.
Shifting to letters, the Kabbalah.
Crucial here, so especially the Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation. It talks about 3 mother letters, Aleph, Mem, Shin, resembling a balance.
Sealed by 6 wings, representing elements.
Yes, active and passive elements. These letters supposedly form the fundamental fathers and generations in the universe of the year and in man himself.
And specific letters were linked to planets, days, body parts, like Aleph to wisdom, the moon, the first day, the right eye.
Exactly. It's a complex system of correspondences mapping everything together.
The Sephirothic tree diagram is famous. How does that fit?
It depicts primordial man, Adam Kadmon, the heavenly man, as a kind of blueprint. The 10 divine globes, the Sephiroth, are mapped onto the human body as members or organs.
So our bodies mirror a divine structure.
That's the idea. It connects the divine emanations directly to human anatomy. It's also linked symbolically to things like Nebuchadnezzar's dream statue or parts of the Lord's Prayer.
And there are 4 Kabbalistic worlds.
Yes, cascading down from the divine source, Ai, Eso, Etzeluth, divine names, Braya, archangelic creations, Yetzirah, hierarchical formations, Asaya, elemental substances. Each world has its own 10 spheres.
A whole structured cosmology.
A very intricate one. And some connect the tarot cards to this system too.
The 22 major arcana relating to the Hebrew letters.
And the 4 suits to the 4 worlds or elements. Originally, they might have symbolized societal divisions, priests, soldiers, tradesmen, farmers, or cosmic directions, long before being primarily used for divination.
Which the sources seem to dismiss a bit.
Yeah, suggesting divination was contrary to their deeper purpose.
And protecting all this knowledge involved. Cryptograms. Hidden writing.
Essential, apparently.
Yeah.
Used by ancient and medieval thinkers to conceal wisdom from the unworthy or profane.
How? Hidden in type styles. Like Bacon's cipher.
Yes. Or in page numbers, first letters of words, mathematical codes, obscure jargon, even in illuminated letters in manuscripts, counting words or letters, all sorts of methods.
Hidden is crucial for understanding hidden history, like in Masonry.
Yes. And again, Francis Bacon comes up as a key figure suspected of using these techniques extensively.
The sources really push the idea that his background doesn't match his output, hinting he was a front for some hidden group.
Pointing to clues in his will, odd details in books from the time, suggesting he was deliberately concealing something profound using ciphers.
It wasn't just abstract concepts, though. Physical objects and creatures were symbols, too. Light itself.
Seen as the basic physical manifestation of life, but also understood as a vibration, hinting we only grasp a fraction of its subtle nature.
Those perpetually burning lamps found in ancient tombs.
A fascinating puzzle. Maybe offerings, maybe symbolic aids for the soul's journey, but the idea they burned for centuries suggests some advanced knowledge of fuels by ancient priest-chemists.
The Sphinx. More than just a big statue.
Typically Egyptian, yes. Seen as an image of the sun god Harmachis, often made in the likeness of the ruling pharaoh, linking divine, cosmic, and royal power.
And animals were a huge source of symbols. The dolphin.
Sacred to Apollo and Neptune. Seen as a friend to humans, even becoming a Christian emblem for Christ carrying souls to heaven.
The serpent, we touched on this, not evil originally.
No, a widespread emblem of immortality, reincarnation, because it sheds its skin, and even the supreme creator, the Ouroboros, swallowing its tail. The later evil serpent idea is presented as a misreading.
The eagle.
Symbolize the swift forces of the Demiurgus, the creator of the material world. The mundane lord of birds, contrasted with a celestial bird like the phoenix, also linked to Hermeticism, sulfur, Scorpio, and transmuting lower energies.
The bull seems almost universal.
Worshipped everywhere. India, Persia, Egypt, Assyria. Jupiter turned into a white bull, seen as a powerful phallic emblem of the paternal creative power of the Demiurgus. The sacred Apis bull in Egypt symbolized the exoteric material world containing the hidden spiritual reality, Osiris.
Then goat.
Another phallic symbol, but also representing courage, aspiration climbing to the heights. Alchemically, it was sulfur, and the scapegoat ritual carried deep symbolic weight.
And the mandrake root. That sounds spooky.
It had a strong occult reputation, resembles a human body, used as a talisman, believed to cure sterility, linked to priapic symbols and even the Knights Templars, supposedly. Blavatsky saw it as a bridge between plant and animal kingdoms.
Even composite creatures like griffins or centaurs.
Priests in the mysteries sometimes wore costumes like these, symbolizing different aspects of consciousness or combinations of divine principles. The phoenix rising from ashes, the unicorn symbolizing purity, the centaur embodying the struggle between animal nature and human intellect, the pelican feeding its young with its own blood as a symbol of sacrifice, all held specific meanings.
And stone, just ordinary rock.
Symbolically linked to Saturn, primordial foundations. The earliest forms of worship often involved stones, the spiritual rock versus the terrestrial rock. Litholatry stone worship as an early religion.
Like the menhirs at Karnak.
Remnants of that. Stone tablets were sacred, not just Moses' tablets, linked to the demiurgic sphere, but sapphire tablets representing higher celestial spheres. These were prototypes for pillars and obelisks at pagan temples, often linked to Gemini, the twins, representing dual principles.
Wow. The world was just saturated with meaning for these ancient cultures.
Every part of it could be read as a symbol pointing to something deeper.
And the argument is, this knowledge didn't just vanish, it was carried forward, often in secret, by groups like the Rosicrucians.
Exactly. Though Rosicrucian origins are murky, multiple theories exist because records are scarce. But key documents like the Fama Fraternitatis from 1614 talk about Reformation, secret burials, the symbolic discovery of founder CRC's tomb.
They mentioned grades of initiation, magic writing.
Yes, a divine alphabet. And they stressed understanding the true meaning of scriptures, not just the literal words that caused sectarian conflict.
And the Rosicrucian rose itself, what does that symbolize?
So many things. Spiritual unfoldment, like a blossoming flower. Christ's blood, sacrifice, redemption. Spiritual gold, the result of transmutation. The perfect number 10, petals of Sephiroth. Love, compassion. The sunrise, spiritual awakening.
And Freemasonry is seen as connected.
As a direct outgrowth of these medieval secret societies, permeated by their symbolism, again, Bacon is suspected of hiding its true origins in cipher.
So Masonry perpetuated knowledge through organization?
And through literature and philosophy, influenced by it, drawing on traditions like the Dionysiac artificers, the builders associated with Solomon's temple. It carries that legacy of the unfinished temple of civilization.
You mentioned Bacon several times. The sources really focus on the Shakespeare authorship question, don't they?
They lean heavily into it, citing Shakespeare's supposed lack of education, his family's illiteracy, the messy signatures, the absence of original manuscripts, contrasting it with Bacon's immense learning and his own cryptic comments about his legacy enduring, quote, after some time had elapsed.
They see him as a key link between some invisible institution and the world, using ciphers.
Yes, suggesting hints are hidden in books from that era, needing careful decoding. It's presented as a major historical puzzle with implications for hidden knowledge streams.
The burning of the Library of Alexandria, another symbol of lost knowledge.
Yes, but with a twist. These sources suggest that maybe not all was lost, that the most precious manuscripts might have been saved, spirited away, maybe buried in Egypt or India.
And finding them could bridge gaps between pagan mysteries and early Christianity.
That's the hope expressed, proving that early Christian mystics based their ideals heavily on pagan traditions, even using their sacred sites like Mithraic temples, borrowing rituals and structures.
Even Islam gets mentioned in this context.
Briefly, noting that Kaaba itself was a pagan temple housing hundreds of idols before Muhammad, and highlighting Islam's role in preserving and advancing knowledge, chemistry, math, optics, navigation, often building on Greek philosophy like Neoplatonism and Aristotle.
And it wasn't just the Old World, American Indian traditions too.
Yes, the Popol Vuh, the Mayan sacred book, is cited as showing profound philosophical depth. Ideas of an impersonal, one God, personal forces, reverence for the plumed serpent, like Quetzalcoatl, as a messenger of the sun, echoing serpent symbolism elsewhere.
And initiatory rituals, ordeals.
Detailed in the Popol Vuh, like passing through houses of gloom or spears, suggesting similar mystery traditions existed across the globe.
It paints a picture of a global network of ancient wisdom, much of it hidden or lost.
Which brings us back to some of the enigmatic figures mentioned, like Cagliostro and Saint Germain. They seem to embody this continuity.
Cagliostro often painted as a charlatan, right? Just a bit balsamo.
Doubts are cast on that identity here. He was vilified after the Queen's necklace affair, though exonerated, seen by some as a kind of agent provocateur leading up to the French Revolution, defended by Masonic writers like Henry R. Evans.
Contracted with the Comte de Saint-Germain.
Who is even more baffling, an apparent immortal, scholar, linguist, musician, artist, known for the strained luminosity in his paintings. Ambidextrous. His mysterious appearances and disappearances echo ancient patterns, suggesting he represented that ongoing stream of wisdom, the undying mysteries.
And the figure of Jesus is also re-examined through this lens, the Christos mystery.
Yes, the concept of a universal savior God, present in pagan philosophy long before Christianity, is seen as heavily influencing Christian doctrine. The "I am the way" statements echoing mystery school teachings.
Jesus Christos seen as maybe a composite doctrine, meeting resolution.
That's one interpretation. Christos as the perfected man who successfully passes the world mystery initiation, symbolized by 33 years, reuniting with the Divine Father.
The Jesus story and the Hiram Abiff story seen as parallel secret initiatory rituals.
That connection is made, and contradictions are pointed out, like Irenaeus stating Jesus lived to an advanced age versus the traditional 33 years. Early Christian apologists like Justin Martyr are shown using analogies from pagan myths to aid conversion.
There's also that complex legend about Adam, Seth, and the Tree of Life.
Right, Adam's name, Adam, linked to the four corners. Adam as a prototype of Christ, Eve from his side while sleeping, the church from Christ's side after death.
The Hebrew Elohim being plural, androgynous, creating humans male-female, mistranslated often.
That's argued, and the command to replenish, implying prior existence. Adam formed from substances of 7 worlds.
And Seth finding the garden, seeing a cross-shaped tree over hell.
With Cain's body at the roots. An angel gives Seth 3 seeds from the tree of life knowledge, which are buried in Adam's mouth. They grow into a 3-trunk tree absorbing Adam's essence.
Noah takes this tree on the ark, plants it later.
Plants it on Mount Lebanon after burying Adam's skull under Mount Calvary. The wood of this tree, tradition says, eventually became the cross. It connects everything back.
It all comes back to the idea that the real mystery, the real subject is us, human potential.
Exactly. The sources state clearly. The true subject of philosophy is man. Your invisible nature is as vast as your comprehension, as measureless as your thoughts.
Spirit comes before form. Form is within spirit.
Yes. Your spirit relates to your body as God relates to the universe. Universal nature is within God's essence, not separate from it.
That diagram, the divine tree in man, shows these connections.
Links the higher principles, spirit, intellect, soul, to our lower nature, astral mind, reason, senses, showing how our everyday reason corresponds to a potential for illumined understanding.
And those elementals, nature spirits, nymphs, sylphs, gnomes, salamanders, they're presented as real.
As existing within the elements. Gnomes guarding treasures, tricky but faithful if trusted. Sylphs inspiring artists and poets, linked to genius but also inconsistency. Associated with gases, the nervous system, even ancient oracles were supposedly linked to them.
The message seems to be, don't underestimate yourself.
Precisely. Man is not insignificant. Your physical body isn't the full measure of you. Understanding these deeper layers increases your capacity to know, to incorporate more of the universe into your consciousness.
The unknown is just what we haven't integrated yet.
Exactly. And philosophy, in this broad, ancient sense, helps you develop appreciation, unfold latent powers, and master the secrets of the 7 spheres, the different levels of reality within and without.
What's the ultimate vision these sources paint?
A kind of future golden age, maybe? Where there's a great university teaching symbolism as the key to everything, where every object, thought, emotion is seen as a symbol of an eternal principle.
Chiram truth buried in every atom. Every form a symbol, every symbol a tomb holding truth.
And education becomes the act of releasing those truths. Government patterned after divine principles. Sages ruling wisely. Gods walking with men, metaphorically or perhaps more.
Dead hopes and virtues resurrected.
Yes. The spirit of beauty and goodness, repeatedly slain throughout history, like Osiris, Orpheus, Chiram, finally becomes the recognized master of the work, guiding humanity, and true happiness is found within.
So we've taken quite a deep dive here through sources suggesting a universe far more layered, more symbolic than we usually think.
Yeah, where philosophy, mythology, science, religion, they all intertwine through this language of symbols.
From Pythagorean numbers and Kabbalistic trees to the myths of Osiris and Chiram, these traditions seem to point consistently towards deep connections. Connections between the divine, the cosmos, and our own human nature.
We've seen how even physical things like the tabernacle or the Sphinx were read as keys to deeper truths, and how mysterious figures might hint at knowledge streams flowing beneath the surface of history.
It really does make you wonder, what other ancient symbols, maybe ones we see every day, might hold keys to forgotten wisdom?
Is the universe truly structured with these hidden layers of meaning, as these sources suggest, reflecting our own inner depths?
And perhaps the biggest question: what lost knowledge, what untapped potential might still be waiting to be discovered, not just in ancient texts, but maybe within ourselves?
Keep exploring, keep questioning.
Yeah.